Good morning, everyone. Mrs. Dahlhoff here with the assassin. She actually wants to get down because I tried to show you Eddie. I did a video a second ago and I knocked the camera over. So she's not really very happy. I'm not going to get Eddie over here until the very end in case the camera gets knocked over again. A quick summary of chapter 4 and where the red fern grows. Refresher if you've already read it and done the questions, but basically Billy left home. He couldn't wait for his dogs and sorry, she's tired. He left home and he's heading to town 20 miles as the crow flies to get his 2 dogs that he has saved just over 2 years to get. He's come up with his $50 for them. The price actually went down to $40. Hard work pays off, one of the themes of Where the Red Fern Grows. And then we'll find out that when he gets to town in chapter 4, which hopefully you've read, when he gets to town he finds out that people were kind of the same during the Great Depression as they are now. There are some really kind ones and there are some who are not so kind. He gets to the town and realizes that school is in session, and the kids are outside at recess. So while they're outside at recess, they ask where he's from, and he says the hills, so automatically they start calling him a hillbilly, making fun of him, and he really does probably look a lot different. Barefoot, his arms all cut up, a little bit dirty probably at this point in his life. And they ask where he goes to school, and he says homeschooled, which is ironically a lot like what most kids are doing right now. Once you guys are out, you'll be homeschooled for the rest of the school year as well, just because school's not in session because of the coronavirus. But in any case, he says, I bet I'm even smarter, I'm as smart as any of you. That he can't prove that in any way because the recess bell rings again and the kids go back inside. Where chapter 5 picks up is he just continues walking to the store to get his dogs. Now remember, I'm reading from a computer, so it gets a little bit tricky. Like right now, it just went up to the next page. So bear with me if I have trouble with it, and just be entertained by the dog as you're waiting for me. So I'll read just a little bit of chapter 5. Get your books open, start at the top of chapter 5, and follow along with me. I wish I could call on you, just say like A2 or C3, whatever. D, I know D is closed, but anytime you want to just go ahead and read, just have them shut this off and you guys feel free to read on your own. All right, so bear with me as I look away a little bit because I'm reading from the computer screen, but I'll try to get it here a little bit and still keep the dog with me. All right, chapter 5. On arriving at the depot, my nerve failed me. I was afraid to go in. I didn't know what I was scared of, but I was scared. Before going around to the front, I peeked in a window. The station master was in his office looking at some papers. He was wearing a funny little cap that had no top on it. He looked friendly enough, but I still couldn't muster up enough courage to go in. I cocked my ear to see if I could hear the puppies crying, but could hear nothing. A bird started chirping. It was a yellow canary in a cage. The station master walked over and gave it some water. I thought, anyone who is kind to birds surely wouldn't be mean to a boy. With my courage built up, I walked around to the front and eased myself past the office. He glanced at me and turned back to the papers. I walked clear around the depot and again walked slowly past the office. Glancing from the corner of my eye, I saw the station master looking at me and smiling. He opened the door and came out to the platform. I stopped and leaned against the building. Yawning and stretching his arms, he said, "It sure is hot today. It doesn't look like it's ever going to rain." I looked up at the sky and said, "Yes, sir, it is hot, and we sure could do with a good rain. We need one bad up where I come from." He asked me where I lived. I told him, "Up the river a ways." "You know," he said, "I have some puppies in there for a boy that lives up the river. His name is Billy Coleman. I know his dad, but never seen the boy. I figured he would be in after them today." On hearing this remark, my heart jumped and cleared up in my throat. I thought surely it was going to hop right up out on the depot platform. I looked up and tried to tell him who I was, but something went wrong. When the words finally came out, they sounded like the squeaky old pulley on our well when Mama drew up a bucket of water. So let me just stop right there for a second. Have you ever wanted something so badly and you're ready for it, and then at that last second you just froze up, chickened out, whatever it is, just got so nervous you couldn't go through with the rest of it? Well, that's kind of where he is, but this, the ticket master guy is super kind to him. He knows they're his puppies. Let's see. On hearing this remark, my heart jumped clear. Oops, I read that part. I could see a twinkle in the station master's eyes. He came over and laid his hand on my shoulder. In a friendly voice, he said, "So you're Billy Coleman. How is your dad?" I told Papa was fine and handed him the slip my grandpa had given me. "They sure are fine-looking pups," he said. "You'll have to go around to the freight door." I'm sure my feet never touched the ground as they flew around the building. He unlocked the door and I stepped in, looking for the dogs. I couldn't see anything but boxes, barrels, old trunks, and some rolls of barbed wire. The kindly station master walked over to the boxes. Uh-oh, my computer just messed up. Look at the dog for a second while I bring it back up. Yep, here's the dog. The kindly station master walked over to one of the boxes. "Do you want box and all?" he asked. I told him I didn't want the box. All I wanted was the dogs. "How are you going to carry them?" he asked. "I think they're a little too young to follow." I held my gunny sack. He looked at me and looked at the sack. Chuckling, he said, "Well, I guess the dogs can be carried that same way as anything else, but we'll have to cut a couple of holes so their heads can stick out so they won't smother." Getting a claw hammer, he started tearing off the tops of the boxes. As nails gave way and boards splintered, I heard several puppies whimper. I didn't walk over. I just stood and waited. After what seemed like hours, the box was open. He reached in, lifted the pups out, and set them down on the floor. "Well, there they are," he said. "What do you think of them?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. All I could do was stare at them. They seemed to be blinded by the light and kept blinking their eyes. One sat down on his little rear and started crying. The other one was rattling around and whimpering. I wanted so much to step over and pick them up. Several times I tried to move my feet, but they seemed to be nailed to the floor. I knew the pups were mine, all mine, yet I couldn't move. My heart started acting like a drunk grasshopper. I tried to swallow and couldn't. My Adam's apple wouldn't work. One pup started my way. I held my breath. On he came until I felt a scratchy little foot on mine. The other pup followed. A warm puppy tongue caressed my sore foot. I heard the station master say, "They already know you." I knelt down and gathered them in my arms. I buried my face between their wiggling bodies and cried. The station master, sensing something more than just the 2 dogs and a boy, waited in silence. Rising with the 2 pups he held close to my chest, I asked if I owed anything. He said, "There's a small fee, Bill, but I'll take care of that. It's not much anyway." Taking his knife, he cut 2 slits in the sack. He put the pups in it and worked their heads through the holes. As he handed the sack to me, he said, "Well, there you go. Goodbye and good hunting." Walking, and I think that's where we should stop probably because the time is going by quickly on that video. So go ahead and say goodbye to this little one, the assassin, and let me see if Eddie will come over here. Eddie, come. Eddie, come on up. And while we're trying to get Eddie here, just make sure that you guys finish this chapter, work on your questions, do the best of your ability. And I know it's Easter week, so happy Easter. And